In 2016, Evelyn Sayos Yi Wong disappeared. Her daughter told the story of an escape to Singapore, but the truth was literally hidden beneath the ground. In the septic tank of the family home, a secret had been buried, and it took 4 years for it to be uncovered. From fake posts on social media to suspicious cement purchases, this case became an example of a horrifying deception. Yet, as with every other lie, the truth eventually came to light and exposed a crime that shook the whole country. This is the case of Evelyn Sayos Yi Wong from the Philippines. Imagine that your mother suddenly disappeared, but continued to post actively on social media. At first, that might seem harmless, but over time it would become suspicious. That was exactly how the Sayos family felt when Evelyn Sayos Y. Wong, a devoted mother, vanished from real life but still appeared on her account. Even stranger was the fact that her daughter, Joanna Sayos Wee Wong, apparently showed no concern about her mother's absence. In 2016, an unusual story began inside the Sayos family. Joanna told her siblings that their mother had suddenly traveled to Singapore. According to her, Evelyn had left the house in an emotional state in order to distance herself and process their constant conflicts. Joanna claimed that her mother continued to stay in contact with her by sending birthday greetings and warm messages through social media. The last time the 54-year-old Evelyn Sayos was seen was on August 20th, 2016. After that, she disappeared. This sudden disappearance left the family in a state of shock and confusion. Over time, doubts began to grow. The family noticed that Evelyn's messages were short and contained no details about her life. She never initiated video calls and never sent recent photos. When she was asked about her life in Singapore, she answered vaguely. Something about the situation did not make sense. How could a woman who had no serious problems with her family suddenly disappear and cut off every direct form of contact? The warning signs became louder. Passport could not be found, and there was no record that she had left the country. The more the family examined the situation, the more inconsistencies they found in Joanna's story. As weeks turned into months, it became harder and harder to ignore Evelyn's absence. Only on September 7, 2018, 2 years later, did Evelyn's son, John Levy Sayos Wee Wong, finally decide to report her missing. At first, the police were not especially alarmed because they assumed Evelyn might have left of her own will. No urgent action was taken, and the case remained on the list of lower priority cases. In June 2020, however, during renovation work at his mother's house, John Levy noticed a strange, unpleasant smell. At first, he ignored it, but over time the stench became stronger. He asked the workers to dig beneath the kitchen floor, and then he came across something horrifying. Evelyn's identification documents, passport, and bank card were hidden beneath a layer of concrete. John Levy's heart tightened with fear. The realization that his mother's belongings were buried under the floor caused deep concern. He began to doubt whether his mother had truly gone to Singapore, and he was afraid to investigate further. The next day, desperate, John Levy turned to the police. Officers came to the house, skeptical at first, but prepared to investigate. The digging lasted for several hours until the officers reached the unfinished septic tank. As soon as it was opened, a foul smell filled the air. Inside was a lifeless body, decomposed beyond recognition. The officers immediately sealed off the area and called medical personnel to recover the remains. The discovery shocked John Levy and the authorities. How had Evelyn's body ended up there? Who was behind this terrible act? The search for answers had only just begun, and it became clear that someone in that house had been hiding a horrific secret. After Evelyn's body was discovered, police sent it for an autopsy at the Regional Forensic Laboratory. The results were grim. Evelyn had died from a fatal stab wound to the neck. The autopsies confirmed that the cause of death was homicide. Her body showed multiple stab wounds. The injuries were brutal, and her skull had been struck with a blunt object. There were 5 stab wounds in the chest area, 2 in the neck, and 2 incised wounds on the right forearm. It was obvious that the killer had held deep hatred toward Evelyn. John Levy's worst fears had been confirmed, but he needed further proof. To establish certainty, a DNA test was performed, confirming that the body did indeed belong to Ma, Evelyn Sayos Wong. The shocking truth was now clear. The woman believed to be living in Singapore had been dead the entire time, buried right beneath their feet. Suspicion quickly focused on 2 people who had claimed Evelyn was abroad: Joanna and her boyfriend, Ronald James Rudy. Police arrested the couple without hesitation on suspicion of murder. On July 23, 2020, Joanna and Ronald were taken into custody. During questioning, officers asked them about Evelyn's disappearance because both had been staying in the house throughout that period. Under the pressure of the situation, they showed signs of nervousness. Silence filled the interrogation room when Joanna finally broke down and confessed the shocking truth. She had killed her own mother, and Ronald had helped her. The motive behind this terrible act was said to be a long list of grievances and conflicts. It turned that Ronald had developed intense hatred toward Evelyn, fueled by constant arguments between Evelyn and Joanna, especially over Joanna's lifestyle and her relationship with him. According to the arrested couple, Evelyn's constant criticism and scolding had created a toxic atmosphere that eventually led to violence. In reality, Evelyn was a loving mother from Das Marinas, deeply devoted to her children, especially her son and daughter, whom she valued above everything. Her parenting style combined warmth and discipline, as is common among many Asian mothers. She always wanted the best for her children. As Joanna grew older, Evelyn began to worry that her daughter was behaving recklessly. At 16, Joanna became pregnant and moved in with her boyfriend, the father of the child. Evelyn was devastated when she saw how easily her daughter seemed to give up her future. According to Evelyn's son, she often scolded Joanna about her responsibilities as a mother and about how she cared for the child. Evelyn did not realize that her good intentions only deepened her daughter's resentment. Every time Evelyn scolded Joanna, Joanna ran to her boyfriend and told him everything she thought about her mother. Over time, the boyfriend also became angry with Evelyn. Perhaps he saw her as an obstacle, or perhaps he simply could no longer tolerate Joanna's complaints. That is how a dark plan formed, one that changed Evelyn's life forever. On the day Evelyn disappeared, Joanna called her mother from the stairs and told her she had a surprise for her. Evelyn, unaware of the danger waiting for her, calmly went downstairs. But Ronald was already there, waiting with a hammer in his hand, overcome by blind rage. Without hesitation, he struck Evelyn on the head. She fell to the floor with a pained groan. Blood covered the floor, but she was still breathing. In panic, Realizing there was no turning back, Ronald ordered Joanna to get a kitchen knife. She obeyed and returned with a large knife. In a horrific act, they stabbed Evelyn repeatedly to make sure she would not survive. After the killing, they carried Evelyn's lifeless body to the septic tank beneath the house and threw it into the dirty water, believing they had buried their secret forever. Ronald ordered gravel, sand, and cement, then mixed the materials to seal Evelyn inside the septic tank. They believed this was a safe solution, but they were wrong. Days turned into weeks. Evelyn's body began to decompose in the dark tank, spreading an unbearable stench. Neighbors noticed the foul smell coming from the property. There were also reports that Ronald was frequently seen mixing fresh cement to seal the area. Whenever the smell became too strong, Ronald went outside, filled the cracks, and added even more cement in an attempt to hide the crime. Meanwhile, Joanna had another plan to divert suspicion from herself. She decided to impersonate her mother online, regularly updating Evelyn's page and corresponding with family members as if nothing had happened. She went to great lengths to maintain the deception, posting birthday greetings in Evelyn's name and replying to friends and relatives with casual messages. To everyone on social media, it seemed as though Evelyn was alive and well. This deception worked for a long time, and no one questioned Evelyn's absence until John Levy discovered the truth and the web of lies began to unravel. Ronald was charged with murder under Article 248. Joanna was charged under Article 246, connected to the killing of a direct family member. At present, there is limited publicly available information about the final judgment against Joanna Sayos and Ronald James Rudy in the killing of Ma. Evelyn Sayos Wong. According to the available reports, they were arrested, charged, and taken into custody. It is possible that the proceedings were not completed publicly or were not widely reported in the media. The case of Evelyn Sayos reveals a disturbing reality hidden beneath the surface of what seemed to be a normal family relationship. She was a loving mother who, despite the emotional pain caused by the reckless actions of her daughter, Joanna, and her boyfriend, opened both her heart and her home. Yet they repaid her kindness with a cold-blooded murder because they believed she complained too much. It remains to be hoped that justice will prevail. This next case took place in Bogotá, Colombia. In the 1990s, a criminal case made headlines in local newspapers and national news broadcasts. It was revealed that the authorities had arrested a so-called witch. No, this story had nothing to do with supernatural or inexplicable events. However, it was connected to unresolved cases from previous years. The so-called witch turned out to be an ordinary fraudster who practiced what she called witchcraft and claimed to possess various abilities, such as healing the soul and body or multiplying money. In reality, spells, love charms, and other rituals served only to deceive people and take possession of their property. Maria Concepcion Ladino Gutierrez, better known as Doña Conchita or Sister Maria, was born in Bogotá, Colombia, in the 1960s. According to available information, she had been interested in black magic and occult practices since childhood. One morning, Maria, like many other people, was waiting for a truck carrying food. While standing in line, she got into an argument with another woman who, as it turned out, had an equally fiery temper. Eventually, the women attacked each other and began pushing. Suddenly, When Maria realized she was losing the confrontation, she stepped back and began waving her arms in an unusual way while saying strange words. Neither the words nor their meaning were understandable to those around her. Still, it looked frightening. Soon, news of the conflict and Maria's behavior spread through the neighborhood. In addition, a few days later, her rival was admitted to the hospital with severe bone pain. Some local residents, impressed by what had happened, connected the woman's hospitalization with Maria's strange behavior. Maria immediately received the nickname Witch. It must be said that she did not feel insulted by people's reactions. Instead, she used the situation to her advantage and began turning her new reputation into a source of power. People now believed that Maria's spells were truly effective, and many neighbors and residents of the area began asking her for help. Little was known about Maria herself, mainly because she rarely spoke to others about her life. It is known only that she had no children, no husband, and no close family. She rented a room in a relatively large house by local standards, owned by an elderly couple, Eduardo and his wife, Nubia. Don Eduardo spent his free time sitting in front of the house solving crossword puzzles. His wife was usually near the neighboring school, selling papas chorreadas, a Colombian potato dish. Maria quickly gained the trust of the elderly couple. Seeing that many tasks were difficult for them, she offered to help. She mostly helped with shopping and household chores. She also promised to heal their illnesses with a special remedy she gave them, and with massages using herbal ointments. The retirees were very grateful for her help. In this way, she gradually won their confidence. This eventually led to the elderly couple simply disappearing one day. It cannot be said that many people immediately noticed their absence. Yes, a few neighbors noticed that Nubia was no longer selling her food in front of the school. When some of them asked Maria about the couple, she simply replied that they had become ill or had moved in with their children. It is worth mentioning that Maria's appearance had changed noticeably for the better. She looked more polished and better cared for than before. Several months after the elderly couple disappeared, their children, who lived in Ibagué, came to their parents' house. They had not heard from them for a long time and had begun to worry about their health. When they arrived, the house was locked because Maria was not there. Eventually, Eduardo and Nubia's children called the police, who broke the locks and entered the home. The house itself looked as it always had. A report was then filed to search for the missing retirees. During the investigation, police officers determined that money the elderly couple had kept at home had disappeared. It was a large sum, around 150 million Colombian pesos. Months passed before one of the bodies was found. It was discovered by children playing near the San Juan River. Don Eduardo's body lay under a pile of stones, covered with numerous injuries. Unfortunately, despite the investigation, it could not be established who had killed the elderly man so brutally. His wife Nubia was never found. Meanwhile, on August 15, 1994, Maria moved to Fontibon, a busy district in western Bogotá. Once again, she searched for a room to rent. Eventually, she arrived at the home of 54-year-old Carlos Julio Montaña, who lived with his wife and 3 young children. The man willingly rented Maria a room, and she immediately began using her tricks. She told Carlos that he looked very exhausted for his age and offered him her help. Maria spoke about her supposed remedies and claimed it was her gift to help people. Then she took a substance from her bag, which she said was a remedy from the other world. The man took the substance without much hope. The next day, Maria brought him desserts and tablets that, according to her, would help remove everything bad from his body. After several weeks, Carlos began trusting his new acquaintance more and more. He even felt better after she gave him tablets and potions. Because of that, he did practically everything the so-called witch told him to do. He took herbal baths, supposedly meant to drive away evil spirits, and participated in other ritual procedures. In general, everything seemed normal, and family members began to believe that Maria truly possessed the gift of healing. In October of that same year, however, something happened that changed everything. Carlos's wife came home after another day of work. When she entered the house, she noticed that her husband had not touched the food she had left for him before leaving. Then she went to the bedroom and saw that her husband was asleep. Maria also entered the room. She told Carlos's wife not to wake him because he was in a spiritual trance. And after that, Maria gathered Carlos's wife and children downstairs to hold a spiritual session that was supposedly meant to help the man in his trance. During the session, Carlos's wife felt a chill run through her body. She became nervous and decided to go upstairs to see her husband. When she entered the bedroom again, she tried to wake him, but soon noticed that he was lying in a pool of his own blood. At first, she thought her husband had suffered a heart attack, but then she saw a deep wound on his neck. The woman immediately called an ambulance and the police. Within minutes, officers arrived at the scene. They questioned the women, but neither said anything useful. Apparently, the widow did not tell the police the truth because she feared the supposed supernatural abilities of her tenant. Eventually, it was established that Carlos had first been poisoned and then had his throat cut. After this incident, the woman received handwritten letters that were supposedly written by her husband and sent from the afterlife. These letters said that the family should trust Mike's Maria because only she could help Carlos find peace in the next world. They also stated that the family should hand over all their property to Maria. This time, however, the widow was less gullible and threatened to report Maria to the police. The next day, the so-called witch disappeared. This time, she moved to San Cristobal, where she rented another room. Shortly after moving, she met a man named Nabardo Adalberto Guevara Torres, who owned 2 taxis. Adalberto told Maria about his problems, more precisely, that he could not earn enough money because he believed he was cursed. Maria confirmed the man's words. She also offered to help him drive away evil spirits in exchange for a reward of 1,500,000 pesos. The woman then subjected Adalberto to several herbal baths. After several weeks, the businessman realized that the cleansing treatments had not helped him and that his financial situation had only worsened. In desperation, he decided to sell the cars and placed an advertisement. Maria found out about it very quickly. She told Adalberto that she had a son who would gladly buy the cars from him and asked him to remove the advertisement. As a result, they made a sales agreement for the cars, and Maria paid him with a check. After that, she convinced the man to undergo one more cleansing procedure that, according to her, would protect him from anything bad that might happen. After that, Adalberto was never seen alive again. When his family members went to the bank to cash the check, they were told that the check belonged to a stolen checkbook and therefore could not be cashed. After that, the family began looking for the fraudster, since everything pointed to a scam committed by her. A week later, they received the familiar letters from the afterlife and finally turned to the police. Maria was arrested and charged with fraud, but because of a lack of evidence, she was eventually released. After her release, she returned the car and moved again. This time she settled in the city of Bucaramanga, where she became known as Sister Maria. In August 1996, she resumed her activities. Her next victim was an older woman named Heidi Ferrero, who worked in the jewelry business. Maria used her usual method and convinced her victim that a blessing ritual was necessary for the success of her business. The ritual took place directly inside Heidi's shop. Maria began speaking in a non-existent language and gave the woman a glass containing a green liquid, which she was told to drink. It did not take long before Heidi fell to the floor. Maria then searched all the rooms and took the jewelry. Before leaving, she took the victim's car keys and placed the body in the car. She then drove several kilometers until she reached an isolated location. There, Maria poured gasoline over the car and set it on fire. Heidi's body was found the next day, and Sister Maria had already disappeared again by then. Maria returned to Bogota. There she befriended a woman who kept 3 million pesos hidden away. She manipulated her new acquaintance and gave her the famous potion. This time, it only drugged the victim for several hours. While the woman slept, Maria stole the money and left, believing the woman was dead. In 1997, Maria settled in the Ciudad Jardín area in northern Bogota, where she again managed to take a large sum of money from an elderly couple and then kill them. That year, the so-called witch managed to deceive more than 20 people. Some of her victims disappeared, while others, fearing death, chose not to go to the police. In early April 1997, the Bello Clavijo sisters turned to Maria for help. Their mother was suffering from cancer that had been diagnosed at an advanced stage. The grieving young women believed that Maria could help save their mother. The so-called witch agreed. She came to their home several times to perform her false rituals. She also learned that the sick mother had saved 13 million pesos, which were supposed to pass to her daughters after her death. The woman died 1 month later, but Maria claimed she had done everything she could to save her. She helped the grieving sisters cope with the loss of their mother. A week later, when they received their inheritance, Maria convinced them that the money had to be blessed. According to her, they could also multiply the inheritance if they performed a special ritual that would supposedly double the amount within 4 months. In mid-July 1997, Maria met with the women to perform the first phase of the ritual. She asked them to bring the inherited money and place it inside a chest, which then had to be put under the bed. Once this was done, the so-called witch began calling upon spirits that were supposed to cleanse the chest of bad energy. After that, everyone present held hands. Maria acted as a medium so that the sisters could communicate with their deceased mother through her. In the following months, the women received the now familiar letters, supposedly written by their mother, in which she asked her daughters to trust Maria completely because the so-called witch would now protect them. After some time, the sisters attended another spiritual session to communicate with their mother, but one of them began to suspect that something was wrong. She went into the room where the chest was kept. When she opened it, she was shocked to find only 4 banknotes inside. When the other 2 sisters found out, an argument broke out. Maria, however, tried to calm everyone down. She said the money was still there, but had simply become invisible to ordinary human eyes. The so-called witch assured the sisters that they would receive twice as much as they had placed in the chest if they trusted her. As a final step, the sisters had to go through a cleansing ritual. The ritual had to take place near water. That is why Maria took her victims to a stream. There, she asked them to drink a potion. The unsuspecting women did as they were told, and, one after another, soon fell unconscious to the ground. Then Maria took several large stones and threw them at the heads of her victims. After that, she covered the bodies and left the scene. 5 days after the incident, the victims' relatives reported disappearance of the 3 sisters to the police. During the investigation, the authorities came across Maria. After several days, they found her address, but when officers entered the room she had rented, she had already disappeared. In this way, the so-called witch became the main suspect in the disappearance of the 3 sisters. Experienced investigators concluded that this was not the woman's first crime and began looking into similar cases from the past. This led them to an unresolved case from 1994 that also involved witchcraft and healing practices. Later, but several other cases were discovered in which a certain witch was also mentioned. Investigators began searching for a woman in her 40s who was allegedly involved in witchcraft and who moved around the country looking for vulnerable victims. Despite the authorities' efforts, finding this woman was not easy because she constantly moved from one address to another. In August 1998, near a stream outside Bogotá, the bodies of the women were found. The bodies were in a terrible state of decomposition. A few hours later, the victims were identified as the missing Bello Clavijo sisters. After the autopsy, traces of benzodiazepines were found. Similar traces had also appeared in other unresolved cases registered years earlier. While investigating the scene, one of the investigators noticed a surveillance camera positioned near the access point to the stream. He requested the footage from the day the women disappeared, allowing the authorities to identify the license plate of the car Maria had been using. Later reports state that Maria Concepcion Ladino Gutierrez was captured by the Colombian Attorney General's office in January 1999 after an extended search. During questioning, Maria behaved strangely. She laughed and cursed. It is possible that she was trying to pretend to be insane. Investigators quickly realized that they were dealing with a cunning manipulator who was not willing to cooperate with the authorities. Eventually, Maria was sent to El Buen Pastor Women's Prison in Bogotá and underwent psychiatric examination to determine whether she was legally responsible for her actions. Further, after several evaluations, it was established that the so-called witch had been fully aware of her actions. The only condition identified was antisocial personality disorder. Maria Concepcion Ladino Gutierrez was later convicted and sentenced to 40 years in prison. Later reporting also stated that she was placed under house arrest. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourself.